time of the week again. Hello and welcome to Oz by Drone. I'm Greg.
Hi everybody, I'm John. Great to be with you again. Here we are. Another great Saturday morning of everything drones.
It's a wonderful day in Sydney today. It's beautiful weather outside. What's been happening for you this week, John? Have you had a good week?
I've had a good week. Lying in bed. I've been recovering from the knee surgery, as some of you might know, which has been good. So I've had the leg up and been, just tinkering around. I did go for a fly the other day with my friend Hamish, so I hobbled down to the car and we went out on a nice day. So couldn't keep me out of the air, that's for sure. We've been working on a new drop device. There's a couple of new ideas for the Mavic, and we're about to go back to our prison clients, and do some more dropping stuff into prisons, which is a great fun job to do. Great to get paid for something like that. It's good fun. So we've been working on some new devices.
That was the thing that I forgot to ask you about during the phone call the other day. We need to talk about drop systems for a different reason, but we'll take that up later.
Sure.
In terms of what I've been up to this week, as well as fixing up wonderful technology issues, I've also been chatting to our local council here and done a Freedom of Information request about the paperwork that they supposedly received to support banning drones in an area that's been used for many, many, many years. It's our only slope soaring site in the Sutherland Shire, and I'm still going on with that. Long story short, they theoretically received a letter from someone, I'm going to find out who, saying that this was an excluded area that you can't fly. So we're going to find that out and follow that up and make sure that they're doing it with the right motivation. So let's get started for today. It's time to get stuck into the news. And I'll get ready even better. There we go. We'll get into the news. So first off, right up the start, we have... Now, DJI have been doing a lot of stuff about their drone to phone discussions recently. And, we've seen this coming for a while. Now, we'll play their video in the background as we're chatting, John and I. Let's put that up there. Look, essentially, drone to phone, quick little recap for those who may not have heard about it. This is a US led thing that the FAA has been asking for. They wanted a broadcast system, and DJI have obliged that. Now, here's a couple of things. First of all, what's that little lady there giving the finger to the drone in the sky, which I think is rather amusing as a little side topic. But broadcasting of the drone's location and the pilot's location, and doing that over Wi-Fi, there's just so many things wrong with this. And I want to share mine, first of all, to you, John, and get your quick feedback.
Yep.
Pilot location. A lot of people are concerned about that. What's the grounds for Joe Q Public being able to see where a pilot is at? Is that something that they actually need, or should that be restricted to law enforcement?
Well, there's actually got some legal hurdles to go through first, and just recapping quickly, the Surveillance Act doesn't allow this type of tracking technology at all.
That's in Australia. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Australia?
That's Australia.
Yep. In Australia. So, but I think it's going to be contested in the US as well. So one of the things about the Wi-Fi part of this technology is if you're within a Wi-Fi range of the aircraft or the operator, you could say, well, you're in this bubble, you're actually where the aircraft is, there's no broadcast. So separate them, because there's two types of technology here that are being discussed. One is the Wi-Fi only.
Let's call it local cast over Wi-Fi, and let's just jump into a few bits about that.
Now, what local cast over Wi-Fi has got some advantages for me. I don't think broadly that it's a good idea. I actually think that there are lots of other issues. The young kids flying drones that can be tracked, and there's a whole lot of reasons why I wouldn't do that. As a commercial operator, I don't have a problem. If I was doing a roof inspection at a property and I was casting locally over Wi-Fi what I was doing, I'd be happy for someone to pull up an app and say, and it to read out my input. Here's the operator.
Can I change your mind? Can I change your mind?
Yep.
Right. As a nefarious hacker type dude, if you've got a drone that's got Wi-Fi connectivity and you can connect to it over Wi-Fi, The very first thing you're going to do is work out how to exploit it. Now, for those drones that are already accessible over Wi-Fi, you've got Wi-Fi link number 1. This will theoretically be a separated Wi-Fi link. Hopefully they've separated it. But no matter what it is, you're going to try and abuse that. And there's the security implications of that by itself are very scary. Second thing, DJI said that they've partnered up with the Wi-Fi Alliance, and you go onto the Wi-Fi Alliance website and you see the list of partners there, and DJI is not one amongst them. So just what I'm seeing at the moment, just the Wi-Fi bit, it feels a bit like smoke and mirrors. DJI have got a nice marketing video that they've put out, but I don't think it actually exists.
Well, I do agree with you in terms of a big distance, but okay, everybody here, to give you an example, everybody here knows what flight tracker or flight radar is. Great fun to look up airplanes and track them. And you can see Qantas airplanes and Virgin airplanes. You can see competitors that run on a rate, and the competitors can see where their aircraft are in the air, what altitude they're flying at, what speed they're flying at. All of that information is broadcast publicly. Now, my point here is, in aviation, things are different. You know, if you're going to say, if we're going to use the airspace and have this common law around airspace, there are things about privacy that you don't have anymore. You can't say that you want to operate privately when you operate in airspace. Airplanes aren't like that. And you know what? You can exploit ADS-B. We've had discussions on that. Why doesn't that hacker then go and exploit ADS-B with modern airliners? Guess what?
So a couple of reasons. Yeah.
Well, the penalties are the same. This jail term for spoofing a modern airliner is exactly the same.
I'm not talking about spoofing, though. I'm not talking spoofing. Now that you're actually connecting to the drone, can you exploit it in such a way that you can take over command and control? You're
not connecting to the drone. You're just a receiver. You're just receiving the signal.
I'm going to disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. So I had a look at the proposal that they've got at the moment, had a look at their video in detail. There's two parts of it. There's the beaconing, which happens from all Wi-Fi, and I'm guessing that they're going to put position information and serial number in beacon packets. So there is the drone. Now, but it also says you can have a look at the flight history of where the drone not is flying, but did fly. So by the time you want to have a look at historical information, you actually have to establish a Wi-Fi connection to the drone. It's not something that could actually be sent over beacon-only packets.
That's not my understanding of the software. My understanding is the only way the history is recorded is on the app itself, where once you start looking at the aircraft, you can see where it's been flying. Obviously, the broadcast location of the home point is a beacon issue. So remember, most of the aircraft that we're flying these days, they do have a beacon. They're beaconing, and they beacon the home point. You know what? The operator, this is one of the things that's interesting.
You're thinking about the existing remote ID stuff that DJI has built previously, but this new one, from what I gather, and until we actually see it, at the moment it's vaporware,
well, we don't know.
Right?
We don't know. And you know what? I would say that there'd be some lines there that they wouldn't get over. Remember, broadcasting the home point is an easy one, and the operator, if they haven't been clear on that, remember you can set your home point as somewhere else. Say you do. Say you're able to put your home point another location to where you are.
Not home point, current point, current location of the controller. That's what it's broadcasting.
That depends on what is being broadcast. Okay, so if that's not being broadcast, and here's where I think it might go. So we're really talking hypotheticals here. Everyone be real clear about that in the chats and joining. We're just making a guess. My guess is with the way surveillance will work and the way the industry will negotiate this is that yes, only beaconing. So you have no other thing other than a receiver, a Wi-Fi receiver, and whatever the aircraft is transmitting at the moment you can select whether you transmit a text message with the aircraft as well. They're talking DJI, and we use that as an operator. So if we're going to work in an area, Aeroscope can pick that up. So if you're going to
this is different. This is different. This is 100.
But it's all new. So that technology, we've been looking at what Aeroscope transmits. Aeroscope doesn't transmit. Will transmit the operator location provided. It's at the home point. Doesn't send, won't send the transmission of the device, of where the device is. And they're two different things. The home point doesn't necessarily have to be where the device is. Anyway, we're doing a lot of guessing.
Yeah, just briefly, the DJI video, the DJI video specifically said where the operator is located, the operator's location. So that's point number one. Point number two, unfortunately, I didn't play the audio from the DJI video because I did a pre-check before and it was coming up with some copyright match. So I stripped the audio out. But from what I understood, and people in the chat, you can check that out for me and confirm. Does the video indicate that it's going to show you where the drone has been? And is that, where it flew in the last 30 minutes or only where it is right now and recording that track locally? Perhaps we can have that discussion in the chat.
I'd love to ask some of our US listeners where Skydio is, because I'm not familiar with that aircraft in terms of what it broadcasts.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on from that. I'm going to do a couple of more stories and then we'll get to our guest. We had a long intro on that first story. Arrested for flying is the second one today. And in this story, we've got someone who was flying in a park in US. He was arrested for flying a drone. And ultimately, the guy was flying in a park. It's the equivalent of Cronulla, right? So where Cronulla has been banned by a local council and his local city council or whatever decided you can't do that. What I'm going to do is just play a little bit of this video and I'll get Lloyd to do me a favor and go to the run sheet and put up the full link to this story in the chat so people can watch it later. Let's have a look at a bit of it.
Yep. Hello, thanks for watching. Here's a brief synopsis of the drone issue in Genesee County. Thanksgiving 2018, park rangers stop a Part 107 pilot and inform him drones are prohibited in nearly all 11,000 acres of Genesee County parks. Drone operator files up via email with park director, indicating there does not appear to be any rules restricting unmanned aircraft. Park replies that Section 23 bans drones. Drone operator replied that the plain reading of the statute indicates that the prohibition only applies to manned airplanes. Mavic is not an airplane, nor is it a manned
So I'm not going to, it's a fairly long video. I just wanted to bring it up a little bit and to share the story. Long story short is the state had a no preemption law, which basically said no. Local government bodies cannot regulate or prohibit people from using UAVs in any part of the state, period. They actually had that. And the local county let's just stop that video. The local council decided they wanted to, they knew better. Long story short is that the guy who was initially arrested for flying a drone went and challenged that in court and he won. It's a good outcome for UAV flyers. And I think, this is my opinion, you shouldn't have multiple levels of government getting involved in this anyway. It just makes it more confusing for everyone.
Yeah, they're confused as well. They thought that they were doing the and I suppose the one thing the case does do is to bring out and highlight those things so that people, if the more we publicise it, that law enforcement and people who are in charge of that. Now in Australia it's different. About flying, there are different regulations for flying in national parks. Here in Australia, Greg, as you know too
Absolutely.
well. So you just require permission. And it's simple as that. And they have, a reason to do it. They believe that if you're just flying to a light UAV, it's not a problem, but they have issues with the environment. You might be disturbing nests of some kind of bird that you may upset wildlife that you don't know about. And that's a reasonable case for me. I accept that.
Can I share this question and thought for you? I would love there to be a change in the national park requirements. I would love them to add, and permission shall not be unreasonably withheld.
Without writing it.
I'll tell you why. My local national park, the Royal National Park, it's, the biggest one, I don't know by size, but certainly popularity. It's one of the bigger ones in New South Wales. And they said, no, nowhere, zero. You cannot fly a drone anywhere in this national park, period. And I have a problem with that. CASA regulates safety. They need to regulate the environment and the animals and the park itself, right? And if there's an area where you can't go for reasons of, animal safety or whatever it might be, then fine. But other than that, it shouldn't be unreasonably withheld. That's my view.
It's going to evolve. I mean, I know that the national parks have their own REOC for, here, and they've got a chief pilot involved. So you can obviously, I don't know whether you conducted him directly, Greg, or you've just been with the local national park coordinator. But I'm sure if you went through to the chief pilot with your Part 107 certificate and you have a reason to fly there, we didn't have a problem flying botanical gardens in the city, but we had a job to do for them, for the trust, and that was to catalogue a historical building. So I said to the client, you go get the permission, tell them what you want to do, and we'll provide all the paperwork, but get the permission.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We've got a few more stories. I'm going to do a couple more before we go to our guest. This one here, the question is, do you pick a fixed wing or do you pick a VTOL? And in this particular one, we've got a 2-in-1 drone that shows both. Let's play. So this one's from IHLS, I think was where we found the story.
Yeah.
And it talks about the drone industry is becoming more and more specialised according to different types of missions and versatilities. And they said, we want to make a drone that fits in both categories. So just an interesting new product on the market.
Yeah, it is. I've had a good look at the Quantum products, the Quantum Trilogy and others, and Avi Assist are giving full training packages for it now. It's horses for courses. A little bit of history, though, for those that are interested in Sikorsky. When he first developed the helicopter, went to the US Army and said, I've got this great device. And they said, well, it lifts as much as an aeroplane. And he said, a helicopter will never lift what an aeroplane will lift. Oh, okay. Will it fly faster than an aeroplane? He said, a helicopter will never fly faster than an aeroplane. Oh, okay. And they didn't buy it. They said, well, what if it can't fly as fast, as high, or as long, or we're not interested, He said, well, it'll do one thing that an aeroplane won't do. And so for us, as quad pilots looking at these fixed-wing aeroplanes, there is something that they'll do that we can't do, and that's basically in terms of flight time and range. They'll just blitz a different level. So again, horses for courses. If Sikorsky could have told them a little look into the future and said, that if you put end to end, head to toe, all of the people in the world that a helicopter has saved, their lives it has saved, you'd go right around the world a couple of times. It's phenomenal. The helicopter stands as one of the most unique and life-saving. People say that straight away. What's a helicopter good for? It saves lives. It saves lives. It does things airplanes can't do. And a lot of airplanes don't save lives like a helicopter does it every day. I'm hoping that our multi-rotor community will be seen like that one day. The utility that we have in multi-rotors will be seen as life-saving, critical, in terms of security, safety, all of the things that quads can do. So, it's good. It's great to have them in our world, and the VTOL stuff is very, very interesting. As you know, I've been building them, so they're great fun. Okay,
going to quickly race through a couple of stories and then we get to our guest. One here, Black Swift Technologies. Yeah, Tim, we're hanging out for Tim. We're gonna have a talk to him and find out what he's playing with. This one quickly, just a photo of Black Swift Technologies. They've unveiled a new automated industrial inspection drone. They're based in Colorado in the US. It's supposedly able to do highly accurate close-up inspections of infrastructure like wind turbines, even in extreme conditions. Really, really cool. I guess a bit of the concern is taking pilots out of the loop. I'm hoping that they're going to have a system that obviously is still going to be flown by a pilot, especially when you're dealing with something like a wind turbine and something that's variable.
I don't want to put too much of a kibosh on this, Greg, but the other day people were throwing around autonomous and automatic and all this stuff. And I said to someone, look, come into my kitchen. I got an automatic toaster here, completely autonomous. It will cook the toast and it'll pop the toast out. And the other one is my kettle, which will boil water and turn off. I think, when
you still got to put the water in.
Mate, I know. We use this. I tell you what, someone is there with that aeroplane, putting a battery in it, making sure the props are on correctly, making sure that there's no obstacles in the way. And so, although, we talk the truth here on the show, there's autonomous and there's always someone there at these stages that are looking after that robot, doing what it's doing. Sure, it flies on its own, can obstacle avoid and do all that sort of stuff, which is wonderful. My Maverick will do that.
Yeah. Anyway, the next one, we've got two more quickies. Percepto, this is another autonomous-related one.
We have a super chat.
Let's play that video. And I just heard in the background that we've got a super chat. By the
By
way, Lloydie, I put your mic hot today just out of interest. I didn't tell you before. Okay. Can you put that super chat on the screen? Just so I can have a look at that.
Unfortunately, I would have, but it's not working again.
It's not working again. We've got to love the technology. Who's the super chat from?
It's from Wayne King.
Wayne, thank you very, very much. I would give you a banner and stars and fireworks, but the technology... Okay, I'll leave that alone. Let's play the next clip. Thanks, Wayne. Here we go. Now, this one is Percepto is the name of the company. They're also building end-to-end drone solutions that are designed to be autonomous, smart and robust. And this one, it's flying in some interesting areas. Have a look at that.
Yeah, this looks like snow.
Yeah. So it's an interesting product as well. Flying in snowstorms and blizzards is something that they're saying, yes, our drone can do that. They've designed it to be able to fly in heavy snow. It's a Sparrow, yeah. It's only a very quick video.
A lot of startups in this area now. We've got the landing pad and the battery changeover. Relates to our last clip, of course, as well. So, there's going to be a big market for it.
Yeah. And our last story, this one's just a quick... Sorry, John. We'll just move on. Our last one quickly, Sydney New Year's Eve. Now, for those internationally who don't know, obviously New Year's Eve in Sydney is an important part of our annual calendar with the fireworks and so on. For those overseas who don't know, we actually have two fireworks displays every year, one at 9 p.m. and one at midnight. And this year, with the bushfires that we were having here, there was a lot of controversy about actually having any kind of fireworks display at all. People were saying, let's spend the money on bushfire relief and drought relief. But that's exactly what is being planned for next year, putting an end to the fireworks displays and moving to a drone display. But here's the question. The 9 o'clock fireworks in the last New Year's Eve were actually postponed because of the weather, the wind. It's actually, I think it's probably, a lower wind threshold to be able to do a drone display compared to doing a fireworks display. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yep, that's exactly right. The fireworks cost, we looked at the stuff on about $6.5 million worth of gunpowder. It takes on New Year's Eve. A drone display, they're talking about up to 150 drones, about $75,000. Big saving. I'd love to see it move over. I don't go to the fireworks much anymore. The kids have seen them. I've seen them. We're almost over it. And I'd rather see something new. I'd rather see something interesting. And fireworks traditionally with us in Sydney and Australia, I suppose fireworks is related to and enjoyed with large consumption of alcohol. And so, things go bang and explode and you light. It goes back to the time when we used to drink beers sitting around a bonfire and throw things on it would burn.
It's very Australian.
Primal instinct. And yet, I'm hoping too we've evolved a bit as a nation and say, yeah, well, that's okay. You can still sit around a bonfire and drink beer on New Year's Eve. There's nothing stopping you doing it. $6.5 million worth of fireworks that, to me, are looking a bit the same now. I'd like to see something different. You know, I'd
like to see something different. I'd like to see someone, you know, getting sausages delivered and flying and fishing at the same time. I'd like to see a lot of that.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
was that Melbourne a good transition or what?
I know. Melbourne have fireworks, don't they, Tim? Hey, you guys have fireworks down there?
Absolutely, not as good as the Sydney one.
Yeah, so welcome, Tim. How you doing?
Greg, how you going? John, Lloyd? Yeah, good. Very good.
So it's been a little while since we spoke to you. Last time we had you on, it was a short time after the infamous fishing video. Tell me what's happened since then. Or actually, if you want to go back further, tell me about how you first got into all of this drone stuff. Let's start there.
Started with a Phantom 2. I actually started with a Kmart $50 drone. You know, those cheap ones that don't stabilize very well. And then I thought, no, we need something a bit better, something with a camera on it. So we got the Phantom Vision. That was sweet because my parents got 20 acres and we just flying it around there. Heaps of fun. The boys come around. We're just flying around doing crazy stuff with it. And then we tried someone come up with the snag idea and we tried it with the Phantom 2 and it was too much weight and the battery just went down, added weight. So then the Phantom 4 came out and we thought, oh, we'll give it another go, and it could lift like twice the payload. So we thought, yeah, we should do the stunt with the Phantom 4, and we done that, and everything went a bit wild, and got the fine for that one. And then we started planning in the next stunt, which was the fishing one.
So you wanted a bit more weight than the sausage?
Yeah, basically. We looked at different people overseas that have built wild machines, and it gets a bit complicated once you start going from a quad to a hex to an octo to a dodeca to a hexadeca. And it's all about payload and propellers and batteries, and it starts getting real confusing. So you just got to keep researching. And there's good apps. There's good apps if you want to build your own drone. It's called eCalc. So you type in, what type of drone you want, and it'll tell you what size propellers and how many motors and how many batteries, what it can weigh. So it's pretty good. So that helped us a lot. And then it was just a whole lot of once the frame was built and the motors were on there, it was just a whole lot of testing. Because if one propeller's say spinning the wrong direction, the whole thing's just going to flip. It's just a bit hard to get going.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the testing that you did, right? So I've got a couple of clips that you've sent through. Let's have a look at the first one,
which was... Let's say the testing that was done, not that I did.
Well, the testing that was done. In fact, all of these videos, let's talk about all of these videos involve testing that were done because of the nature of the fact that CASA's fining amounts of money over these drones in the past. We're just going to say testing needs to be done. Okay, right. And this is some of the testing that was done. First video.
You can see the 80 kilos of weights on the chair there.
So this was prior to the fishing expedition.
This was the fishing drone. Got 80 kilos of weights on the chair there. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can see what the quality is. It's actually a fishing rod. Got a 1 ton fishing line attached to the chair with drag. Yep. And what that does is stops the prop wash from spinning the chair like a top. Because that was a big issue with all the wind coming down. It was just spinning the chair like crazy.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can make out what's actually happening there.
Yeah, there was actually some discussion when your video first came out, and people were talking about they thought there was a line or a tether from the chair back to the shore, and that was to stop that spinning.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was to stop the spinning. An idea I came up with, because with helicopter rescues, I don't know if you've seen that one of it spinning crazy, and the poor old lady, she was spinning around super fast. Yeah. Yep. So apparently what they sometimes do is there's a guy down below with a rope to stop it spinning. And not really any way you can do that when you're over a lake. So we thought a fishing rod with a bit of drag on it, like strong, because we're talking about a lot of weight getting pulled. So as long as it's got a good drag, it should technically stop it. And it worked. The guy behind the fishing rod, he had one job and he nailed it. Yeah.
This is good to hear about some of these things because, you see the end result and you wouldn't even know about some of those factors that have gone into the planning and preparation for that. The second video we've got over here, let's have a look at this one.
This was just another drone we're testing. Yeah, that one
Lloyd,
didn't end
what
well.
was that sound? Hang on, let's play that again. Oh, Lloyd, you're letting me down. One more time. There we go.
Not quite the sound it made.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, just
An expensive sound, I venture.
What went wrong there with that?
So what happened was the flight controller thought that it was tilting one side, so it thought, oh, let's give the other side more thrust. And because the motors were in the wrong positions on the flight controller, it gave the same side that was tilting more thrust, and it basically did a backflip.
Okay.
So that goes to show you should really check your motor orientation and your positioning before you think, oh no, she'll be right, and launch it, because it can cost a lot of money.
How much did that cost?
I think that was 4 broken propellers and a bit of bending and panel beating. The motors were fine, the ESCs were fine, the batteries were fine. Propellers, I guess.
Okay, and we're going to go to one more quick clip.
At least it didn't land upside down.
What happened there? One more time, let's play it again.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if any of you guys have built your own craft before, but there's a lot of called PID tuning that goes into it, obviously, to make sure it's level at all times. It doesn't try to overcompensate its levelness. So there's a function, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the Pixhawk flight controller. There's a function called auto tune. What it does is it goes up, you put it up in the air, you click auto tune, and it does bzz, 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 and it knows all the values to get it perfect. And we thought it would be a good idea to attempt auto tune on that craft. And the auto tune was turned up maximum, rather it should have been turned down to the minimum, so it went slow, but it went super aggressive, and it was a bad move to try auto tune on that craft.
I've seen a lot of pranks from doing auto tune incorrectly like that. Yeah, you've got because what you're doing is PIDs are how much does the aircraft respond to your stick movement. So when you're going to auto tune mode, you basically go hard left and hard right. So for roll, and you use the stick, you need to go 20 times like that, and the aircraft eventually learns. Okay, I know what you want, but here's what you're going to get. Let's smooth it out. So that's basically what it is, and you've got to do it in yaw and pitch as well. And so many people crash doing it. I mean, you can go for a rough tuning, auto tune, and see how it works out. But it can be a risky time. Wow, I don't know whether I'd have done an auto tune on that one.
They said it would have been fine. Like the people that know a lot about them just should have turned it all the way down to the minimum, not the super aggressive. Aggressive is quicker.
Turn it right down.
Yeah, should have done it very slow. Lesson learnt. That one cost a bit.
Okay, so beyond that, let's talk about the whole process of building, right? So have you considered even doing a how to build your own radical big drone for lifting up big things channel? Because that'd be cool. I mean, obviously, CASA doesn't like some of the outcomes of what you've done, but it'd be interesting to go and get into that educational kind of space. How to build radical aircraft.
Absolutely. It sounds like a fun video to make. You don't have to be the smartest person. Like, you don't have to have an aviation degree or anything like that to build a drone. You just need to know the basic, properties of how it works. You obviously need some sort of frame type, whether it's a quad or a hex or an octa. And you just need to know what sort of weight you want to lift and what sort of flight time you want. And obviously, not many people can get more than 20, 30 minutes out of their own drone just because of the efficiency. But I guess you could explain about all that and where to start. Sounds like a good idea, Greg.
I'm just imagining sometime in the future seeing not one person going fishing over a lake, but maybe a whole fleet of people going fishing. Anyway, that's another story for another day.
I know someone that's built a two-seater human lifting drone, actually. Not me, of course, but I know someone that has.
Okay.
So Tim, I got to ask you, Tim. Did you explore at all with your team the idea that this wasn't a drone but actually an experimental light aircraft in that category rather than in the remotely piloted aircraft category? Was that a possibility, or did you have that discussion with CASA, or would you rather not talk about it?
Oh, I mean, it's all done and dusted now. I've got fined and it's all over. It said that if fine gets paid, then there'll be no further action. So I guess that means I can sort of talk about it a little bit. We figured that if it's remotely piloted, they wouldn't consider it as like an experimental aircraft, sort of in the drone category. And there was just a lot to go through, and you knew it probably wouldn't end up. They wouldn't prove anything just because we don't have the licenses and all the things like that to go with it. So it was easier just to pretty much do it the way we did it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more latitude though for experimental aircraft building and testing, and so forth. So I was just wondering whether you wouldn't have been better in that category to take it off the RPAS guys and consider it a. I mean, you actually had someone remotely piloting the aircraft, didn't you? So you weren't sitting in the chair and flying it with.
Well, hang on. We won't talk about who was piloting or who was sitting in the chair, but theoretically, if the person in the chair had the controller, that's the differentiation between remotely piloted versus an experimental aircraft. Is that kind of what CASA said?
Yeah, I believe so. They classed, I mean, we say his name. His name's Sam. Is my cousin. They classed him as the cargo. That's what they said. He's cargo. He's not the pilot. It's remotely piloted, so it's a drone, and this is what we're not happy with.
Yeah, I get that. So, in a sense, even though he was cargo or a passenger, in fact, which is a hard one as well, he wasn't the pilot. And yet there are certain allowances for experimental aircraft. If you're taking off your own experimental aircraft and you're piloting it yourself and you're not endangering another person, there's a fair bit of latitude there in what you can do. You can build an airplane in your garage and go and fly it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be that easy with all our regulations. I thought that you'd need a pilot's license of some type, and you'd need to go through a bunch of different steps to do that.
It's as John said, it depends on the weight. So as long as you keep it within the weight limits, you can build something, strap yourself into it, and go flying.
There's also the 400-foot constitutional law that if you're over your own property, and I know you weren't there, but if you're over your own land, you've got rights as well, provided you don't go into navigable airspace. And so a lot of people in the bush these days fly their Cessnas around unlicensed and unregistered because if they don't go above 400 feet and they fly above their own land, they're not constitutionally required to. But there's no real test. There's some test cases in the past, but there's one rule that CASA has been using with RPAS, and I think they might have used in your cases. Regardless of where you're flying, what the weight is, there's an overriding regulation that says you shall not operate an aircraft, and it doesn't mean whether it's remotely or otherwise. You shall not operate an aircraft that shall create a danger to another person, another aircraft or property. And they can pull that one out of their hat anytime.
Yeah, they did pull that one out. But John, are you telling me say that big drone that we seen earlier, if there was a seat attached to it and I was on my own property, 20 acres, and I flew that and did a video, flew it 5 meters in the air, CASA wouldn't come after me, raid my house? Is that what you're trying to say?
If you're over your own property below 400 feet, and you could fight, and then this is like Marbo again, right? We're getting down to the constitutional law. Constitutional law about land ownership says it used to be that you owned your land, your property, to the centre of the earth and to the heavens above. Now, that was fine until aeroplanes came along in the early 1900s. They made a special Section 9 of the Constitution that says navigable airspace above your property you don't own anymore. It's like Crown land, but will allow you to own any non-navigable airspace. So they did define that as a height. These days, it's defined in law as a nuisance claim. So if an aeroplane buzzed over your house at 200 feet every morning, you could claim that they're entering your property and creating a nuisance, and you'd have rights. But if they fly over your house at 500 feet every day, every morning, that it's legal. They're allowed to, and they're allowed to take photos and do anything they like because they're not in your own property. However, you own the land below that navigable airspace, and so it's understood that up to 400 feet above your own property, the property that you hold the title for, no one else but you has jurisdiction.
Okay, interesting.
And so if you had a case where you said, well, I didn't endanger myself because I tested this thing and I flew it and I didn't consider myself now CASA would have to prove that you're endangering a person's life. Now, you weren't endangering someone else's life, and you weren't endangering property because it's your own property, and you weren't endangering another manned aircraft because you own that airspace up to 400 feet, and another aircraft doesn't have the rights to fly in your navigable airspace. So this is something we've been to a couple of conferences on now, and Norton White lawyers are all over, and they're really good people. They're saying until this is tested, and it is tested every day in outback Australia, I can tell you, there are people out there flying around all the time over their own property at 400 feet, and it would take CASA wouldn't win. They wouldn't win.
Yeah, but John, they could always get you
I'll
with
just add the
hazardous operation
disclaimer.
of aircraft.
I'll just add the disclaimer that we're not lawyers, so if you take John's advice,
yeah,
we're not lawyers.
We're not lawyers. I'm a
John, I'm just thinking they pinned me with hazardous operation of aircraft while aiding and abetting.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be if they seen some big drone with wild propellers lifting someone up on his own property under 400 feet, landowner, they could still pin you with hazardous operation of aircraft.
Well, how did they prove that you were hazardous? How did they make that case that you were hazardous? Why wouldn't you say, what hazard did I create? They have to prove you're innocent until they prove that you've created a hazard over your own. Now, that if it wasn't your property, you created a hazard, a potential hazard, because you weren't able to control it. Remember, on your own property, another person entering your property without your permission is considered to be in a state of trespass. And so you control your own property it's a big deal if you own the land. And that's why we have those other laws about owner flying a larger aircraft, agricultural drones, over your own property. You don't need an REPL up to 25 kilos if you're flying your own agricultural drone over your own property up to that weight. And it's really, as much as CASA would like to, the 400-foot rule has not been tested. But if you had a case that came on and said, I wasn't creating a hazard, and you guys have charged me on a hazard law.
I mean, the fact remains that this was never actually tried. They issued a fine, and based on the risk of potentially bigger fines if they won in court and the legal cost, Tim, you'd take the easy path out and say, hey, here, let's pay the fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course you would. And of course you would. But, it was a fun thing to do, Tim. But, I watched the couple of things that you guys did with great interest in terms of testing it for its legality. And as I say, the only point was that if you'd done it over your own land, I would have loved to have got someone to encourage you to challenge CASA on that point, because that would have been more difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I put in the chat a link to CASA dealing with experimental aircrafts. So,
thank you, Lloyd. That's great.
Even though I'm a Yank, I looked up CASA's experimental aircraft rules and put the link in the chat. So
you can have a look. Yeah.
So you might go that route next time if those people that did that should choose to do something like that again, they can go under the experimental rules. Not that we're
encouraging anyone to do that, but
we are.
While we've got you there, Lloyd.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to play Stop the Yank.
So while we've got you there, Lloyd, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Considering today we don't have an American guest on, normally you ask the questions, and our guest is, quizzed by you. Today we've got two Aussies, and they're going to quiz you, Lloyd, and we're going to play Stump the Yank, or more specifically, Stump Lloyd.
Yeah.
So we got two Aussies here. We're going to ask them one at a time to ask you an Aussie trivia question, and you've got some Aussie friends, and that's why you kind of know some of these things. So let's go with Tim first. You said you were going to prepare something and you had one or two questions. What's your question?
Yeah, Lloyd, I've got a couple for you, mate. Basically, if I told you your missus is Starkers, what am I saying?
She's a raving
Starkers.
lunatic.
No.
She's a raving lunatic? No?
Good try.
No, so that's a fail. Now, John, if you get a fail, then we've got a tiebreaker situation and we'll go back to Tim. So what do we got out of you, John?
I'm going to use the same one. If I said that your missus was bonkers, what would that mean?
Oh, that one, she's crazy.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
that one I
helping you
figured
here.
out. Yeah.
Bonkers.
Well, we've got the answer and I'm looking for the sound effect. There we go. So Tim is our honorary stumper for the day. He's actually got one up on you, John. He had a better Aussie trivia question that Lloyd didn't know. So that was an easy, quick win.
What is
Do we
the
want to ask
answer?
one more?
The Tims.
Oh, Starkers
What is-
means nude. You've got no clothes
Naked.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Stark naked.
Makes sense.
Stark naked.
Yeah, stark naked. Well, it's either
Yeah, yeah.
stark raving mad or stark naked. Either one, starkers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Tim's
You know,
the
the
winner.
English
We'll
is-
ask one more for fun if you got one, Tim.
on. Got the coppers chasing me.
What's
The
that?
police are after you.
That's
Okay.
right. They
Yeah,
say
yeah.
coppers in America, do they? Oh, sorry. I didn't
Yeah, yeah.
Bush Tucker.
What is Bush Tucker?
Gonna go get some Bush Tucker tonight.
It has something to do with food, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure the reference to Bush unless it's going to go eat a steak.
Well, you don't find steaks sitting out in the bush ready to go and eat. But anyway,
Okay.
The
What
Bush
is it?
Tucker is basically food you find out, like the environment, I guess, like on trees.
Oh,
And,
okay. Yeah.
plants.
All right. Yeah.
When you have no food, you got to go find some Bush Tucker.
But,
Yes, you
yeah.
the
Okay.
famous
tucker.
widgery grub.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Kangaroo or whatever
Yeah.
you can find
Okay,
at the
look-
crocodile. Yeah.
We'll leave it there for today. It's been great having you on, Tim, and
Yeah,
we
Tim.
look forward to having you
worries.
back again sometime in the future.
That was a great session.
Hey, before you go, can you tell us what's next, or is that secret squirrel at the moment?
Look, I want to do the right thing this time. I don't want them raiding my house or my parents' house because it's definitely a bit rude. The old aviation authority. So I would still like to build something for water skiing. So you can just go behind it. You're 30 meters away. You know, it's not hazardous to anyone. But there's going to be a few loopholes. Not loopholes. A few regulations you're going to have to sort out beforehand. Might have to
So-
contact them and might have to even get the REOC. Which I don't know even if they'll let me get a REOC given my history.
I think they will, mate. I think you've earned a REOC. You know, you've probably had enough dealings. You know, the compliance one might be difficult because when you get a REOC, you got to sign up. You're going to comply with it.
Yeah. And then I've got a license to lose as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, the other thing, mate. Of course, I love the things you're doing. I really applaud you, the things that you've tried and doing. I didn't really see there weren't any real issues. You're not the type of guy that strikes me as someone that would put someone in danger anyway, other than yourself. And I do that
Yeah.
plenty of times anyway. In a car every day. So, I mean, I just think maybe there's a if you're interested in the heavier stuff, there's going to be a business for you there somewhere as well. In heavy lift aircraft, and you know, not many people are doing it yet. But if you get some real knowledge for it and start building some machines that can lift up obviously utility things, and you could get a REOC and maybe make some good money out of it.
Yeah, there's also the I was thinking like the firefighting drone. Been done
Yeah.
overseas, but if there was one in Australia, people might get interested given all the fires we've had. You could attach
Yeah.
a big hose to it and send it up 10 stories high, and obviously under 400 feet. But yeah,
One of the things that they're looking at the moment, because we've been dealing with that, is actually incendiary aircraft. So when you want to do a backburn, say you've got a fire that's progressing and you want to go down deep into a gully quickly and actually light a backburn for the fire to actually stop it. A UAV is really good at that because it can fly there quickly, accurately, can set a flight plan up, and you can drop fire lighting, bits and pieces right in the exact right spot, and set off a backburn fire. So I know that's being discussed at the moment too, and those aircraft will be reasonably heavy as well. As
so,
firefighting,
John, you're suggesting that he gets into mounting flamethrowers on a drone, basically going
there
from.
We go. There. Well, yes, and I mean, there is a good need for that as well. You know, if you saw. We watch the bushfires here with great interest in terms of how we might be able to help. Apart from observation, aerial observation, I can tell you, man, when those fires are actually happening, they would just swallow a helicopter. I mean, holding a hose. It is the amount of energy and the amount of power in a fully blown wildfire or bushfire is just phenomenal. And I think that we'll certainly have a space in terms of using UAVs for, as I said, observational information, tracking the fires, information, communications, all that stuff. But the actual fighting of the fire, they're trying it with 747 tankers, and they're still not getting there. So it's a big job, one that hasn't been really solved yet. Aerial firefighting's only is efficient to a point, but we still can't stop them. Still cannot stop those fires with that sort of aerial task force.
Yeah, I was thinking more apartment building fires, rather than fires. But yeah.
Yeah, sure.
They're also asking. They're also asking if Tim can come into the Discord after the show.
Yeah, good idea.
Some of the people.
Yeah, Tim, if you're available, we've got a voice chat room, and people have got some questions they want to ask of you. So if you've got some time after the show, feel free to stick around.
Yeah, got a little bit of time.
Okay, we're gonna say goodbye now so that we can get into the last couple of news stories. Explore Australia is not going to be on today because Greg Hilton is still kind of doing some home moving and all of that kind of stuff. So thanks, Tim. It was great to have you.
Anytime, Greg. Thanks, mate.
Okay.
Catch you later.
See you, mate. Okay, let's go back over here. Johnny, we've got a couple of quick stories left that we're going to do. Number one is the invincible drone. And I think this kind of, matches perfectly with Tim. You saw those drones flipping over. Let's just play the video and you'll see what we're talking about. 106.
Sell it to me, Ben. Sell it to me.
There we go. So in this one over here, we've got some guys playing with some drones and getting frustrated with them, or at least that's the spin that they're putting on it. And they're programming it and they're doing some interesting things with flight control and automation and being aware of each other in there. But just keep watching. We've seen other examples before where people are aggressive with the drones and they respond. This is really, really cool. Some good AI in there. And they also self-aware of the other drones. They had 3 of them in the room at one time as well. They're aware of each other and they try and avoid them. So that's what they titled it in the article that we saw anyway, the invincible drone. No comments. Has he frozen?
I really like the look of that. I mean, there's so much good research going in that at the moment, and non-GPS too. So you're obviously watching that. You're seeing that they're using their positioning system, which is based on lights and visual positioning, which is going to be the future.
Absolutely. And speaking of the future, aerobatic drones. Let's just play this clip as well. We've got a couple more to go. We'll finish very quickly today. Now this is a much longer clip, so I'm not going to play it all. But Lloyd, again, if you could post the link to the entire clip in the chat out of the run sheet, that'd be helpful.
Which one is this?
We're up to 107.
Yeah, I'm going to have a look at that. Look at that. They look beautiful.
So this racy-looking 12-rotor coaxial multicopter has been filmed in Croatia, pulling extreme rolls, loops, and carrying a human on board. Not at the same time, mind you, but still, to see a drone of this size pulling stunts like this is definitely pretty astonishing. Now, it's a much longer clip. There's a lot more info in there to digest than we've got time for today. So, again, encourage everyone to go and check that out. Lloyd's putting the link into the chat right now. Look at that.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah.
It's kind of like FPV on a big scale if you did actually have the human in there. Now, for their initial testing, you know, they're not putting people on board at the moment. You know, they're putting sandbags in when they're doing their loops at the moment. But at some time in the future, that would be possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Looks like a nice machine.
We'll leave that one there. We got a couple more stories. The next one we're going to hit up is... we're going to have a look at the Mars rover, and this is just a really brief comment to let people know. Obviously, you've heard about the Curiosity, which is going out to Mars. Well, they've got a drone out there as well, so we're not going to spend too much time on this. Again, Lloyd, if you could throw the link in the chat for that.
The next chapter of Martian exploration is being written right now at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California. Inside a massive clean room, the Mars 2020 rover has been carefully built alongside hardware that will deliver it safely to the Martian surface. This new rover will search for signs of ancient life, test new technologies, and gather rock samples which may someday become the first pieces of the red planet ever returned to Earth for analysis. To avoid contaminating these precious samples with earth schmutz and body hair, anybody hoping to get close to the Mars 2020 machinery has got to get clean.
Looking at the Mars rover, and the amount of weight and energy that went into that in terms of crawling along the ground, I suppose they probably wished that some of that early stuff had been a quadcopter. But you can see a lot, you can do a lot more with a quad, can't you? If you don't have to crawl across the rocks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crawl across the ground.
In terms of, you know, a quad design of some sort, I'm just thinking about the physics of that with the atmosphere that is actually on Mars. What are the implications of that? How do you do all those calculations the first time?
Yeah, that's pretty heavy, that vehicle.
Yeah.
That's a heavy vehicle, so you're probably not going to be flying that in any way, shape, or form soon.
Yeah,
but it could certainly have a UAV attached to it. You know, have a look
so
around.
That's what they're saying. It does have a UAV attached to it, but how do you actually do the calculations? We know gravity here on Earth. We know our atmosphere on Earth. Doing the math to work out you want a flight time of X. How do you actually do that calculation for flying on Mars? There are some.
Oh well.
Seriously smart people out there. Seriously smart.
Yeah. Having good time doing it.
This one over here, we've got two stories left. Taz Drone Solutions. Let's play the clip in the background while I chat. So we spoke about this last week, and we've actually got him coming on as our guest next week as Tasmania's first accredited drone sprayer. He's changing weed management industry with cost-effective and efficient and safe weed spraying and weed control. And the example that we showed last week, we got a little bit more video of it here now. He's going and doing drone walls and getting rid of the weeds on the wall of the drone instead of abseiling down. Much safer way to do it.
Yep, that's great.
And our last story of today. This one, it's the title of this story, when you actually look at it on the article where we found it on Westward, a drone pilot walks into a bar. It sounds like there's a joke about to happen, but let's play the clip. Now, you have to understand, I've stripped out the audio here because we didn't have rights to use that audio, but essentially in this bar, they've gone and set up an FPV course in the bar. So people behind, I assume, mesh protection are sitting and drinking while other people are going and flying and doing crazy things in the bar. It's a novel type of entertainment, mixing alcohol and FPV flying. And your audio's disappeared.
And
there we go.
Girls dancing with hula hoops as well. You know, like
We've got everything on this show.
That's a bar I'd like to go to. That's good. You can have a fly around, girls with hula hoops, get a drink. You know, I wonder what the menu's like.
We're taking this show to new heights. Oh, no.
Boom, boom.
Okay, we've reached the end of our show. As always, we got a couple of quick announcements if you want to send us something. And I do have a video that I forgot to include this week from our local fixed wing pilot. We'll play that next week. But if you do want to send, upload at gregkuhnert.com. Don't send the actual movie file. Send a link to it where it's stored somewhere. Please do follow us on social media. A quick reminder, we actually do live stream on Facebook and Twitter and Twitch and all sorts of other platforms at the same time. Please go to some of those platforms and support us and follow us there as well. If you want to send anything physical, 5/127 Princess Highway, Sylvania, New South Wales, 2224. So we got to the end and it's exactly 12 o'clock by my time here, making it on time. John, any last words from you?
I just think it was great to have Tim on today. You know, I was fascinated watching him in the early days, and I do privately think he's been used as a bit of a scapegoat at times, particularly with the Bunnings one. And I was, the first one to sort of stand up his defence and say, oh, you could have shot that. He didn't necessarily have to do what you could see. You know, movie magic. You could have a fishing line drop the sausage down and make it look like it. And he copped a fine for that. He copped a fine and paid for the other one as well. You know, we're going to have these kind of guys in our industry, entrepreneurial, want to try things, go out there. You know, some people talk about it, you know, and some people do it. And I really applaud him for doing it. I don't know all of the details around the legalities of what he was fined for. I don't necessarily want to stand up and say CASA wasn't right for doing what they're doing. He didn't seem to believe that either. But we've got to have the dialogue. You know, there's got to be a balance between these people who are going to perhaps safely, do the technology. And look, his resulting answer was, look, I want to do it right next time. I don't want to have them come and knock on my parents' doors and come and search the place. I want to do it. Maybe I'll get a REOC. Maybe I'll do it right. So there's a good result that everyone's happy with, and he wants to work within the rules. And that shows to me that he never really did want to work outside the rules. He wanted to do something fun. You know, his intent was to do something fun and a bit mad. Don't you agree, Lloyd? And I like that spirit itself.
Yeah.
It wasn't malicious. You know what I mean? There was no one really in danger except himself.
We don't have a shot of Lloyd there, but that's close as we can get. Sorry.
Yeah. There you go, Lloyd. Don't you agree, Lloyd?
Yeah.
That spirit of adventure.
Yeah. That's what. If it wasn't for guys like him, we would have never gone to the moon. You know.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
Or guys like you that get in boxes and have fireworks lit behind them, you know, trying to get to the moon, you know.
He got a lot higher than I did.
He did.
And I tell you what, if Catherine knocked on the door when I had all those skyrockets, I'd have been in trouble, that's for sure.
Look at that. My producer's getting
wrong.
very creative and throwing me up there with some green behind me. Anyway, look, guys, that's all we got time for. It's been fun having everyone here. John, thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks,
and
Greg.
We'll have that Taz guy next week as well, having a look at some of his work that he's doing as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Okay,
thanks for being part
Bye,
of
everyone.
it. See you next
Lloyd.
time.
Thank you.
We'll see
Bye
you,
for now.
John.
Bye-bye.